After 6 years of redefining what it means to be a quarterback, Lamar Jackson needs no introduction. He's been called undisciplined, untalented, and even not quarterbacky enough to succeed at the highest level. At every possible chance, however, he has proven to be one of the only players in the league who can go head-to-head against the very best. Lamar is not only one of the best players in football, but he's also one of the most feared, with no one really able to properly prepare for him. Today, let's turn the clock back and look at the game that showed the rest of the world that the Ravens had a superstar on their hands. After being drafted by the Ravens very late in the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft, Lamar has won multiple MVPs, Pro Bowls, and first-team All-Pros. After being a consensus three-star recruit with upside out of high school in Boynton Beach, Lamar committed to play at Louisville after they promised he'd only play quarterback. He dominated for 3 years, winning the Heisman Trophy in his sophomore season, making him the youngest ever to do so and the first to ever bring one to Louisville. He declared as the youngest quarterback of the 2018 class, but slipped down the board due to his unique physical traits. Lamar ran a 4.34 40-yard dash and was an electric rusher through high school and college. Because of this, several teams wanted to convert him to a running back or receiver when they drafted him. Lamar insisted, however, that he would only play quarterback, which scared many teams. The arm strength and pedigree were there, but almost every team in the NFL passed on him as he slipped to the bottom of the first round. Before the final pick could be called, however, the Ravens traded up with the Eagles for the 32nd pick and selected the Heisman-winning quarterback as the successor to Joe Flacco. In his first interview as a Raven, Lamar promised to honor the investment and deliver the city a Super Bowl. Baltimore was committed to using Lamar as a quarterback, not entertaining the position changes that other teams had floated, but he wasn't ready to start over the former Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco just yet. John Harbaugh and the Ravens were smart in allowing Lamar time to learn the game without forcing him into action. Even though he probably could have done it, the most Super Bowl winning quarterbacks were allowed time to learn behind a veteran. Lamar played in the 2018 preseason and as the backup in the regular season, but didn't see real action until Flacco went down with an injury in Week 10. The Ravens were 4-5 when they lost Flacco, on the edges of the playoff race. As the starter, Jackson wasn't spectacular with his arm, but stunned defenses with his mobility and ability to read the field. He went 6-1 as the starter for the rest of the season, pushing Baltimore to the playoffs and earning him the title of the youngest quarterback in history to start a playoff game at just 21 years old. He lost in the wild card round, but the Ravens had seen enough. Going into the 2019 season, the team was overhauled. John Harbaugh brought in an offensive coordinator suited to build an offense around a mobile quarterback in Greg Roman. They signed Mark Ingram II, a running back who had been a star for the Saints before being phased out for Alvin Kamara. They also retained Robert Griffin III to aid in Jackson's development as a dual-threat QB and drafted weapons like Marquise Hollywood Brown and Miles Boykin to deepen a room of offensive weapons already featuring 2018 draftees Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews. The Ravens knew what they had and held Lamar back for a lot of the 2019 preseason, giving him just enough reps to get comfortable with his new-look team. The real test would come in Week 1, as Lamar and the Ravens would debut a new offense and their new franchise guy against the Miami Dolphins, led by defensive guru Brian Flores. Miami wasn't a juggernaut, but they'd won their last 2 season openers in a row, and the doubts were loud surrounding the new era in Baltimore. The Ravens entered the season tied for the 16th best odds to win the Super Bowl with a win total of 8.5, all while Lamar was lumped with the field at 100-1 odds to win the MVP. It was time for the second-year quarterback with less than 2,000 total yards to his name to deliver, or a lot of heads would roll. Week 1 arrived on the second weekend of September, and a game began that changed the trajectory of both the Baltimore Ravens and the quarterback position forever. On the road for the season opener, Jackson returned home to Florida to show off all he had learned in a year as a backup and young starter. The Dolphins won the coin toss and deferred, giving Baltimore the chance to get ready for takeoff. After an easy first touchdown drive led by new tailback Mark Ingram, Lamar got to flex his muscles. An interception gave Jackson a short field, and in a single play, he sent Hollywood Brown 47 yards to the house. Only a few minutes later, Miami fans were booing their hometown team because the game belonged to Lamar. He found Hollywood again for an 83-yard score and completed 3 additional touchdown passes through Baltimore's 8 consecutive scoring drives with him under center. The NFL was put on notice, witnessing the birth of a non-quarterbacky superstar, but they didn't even get to see a full 60 minutes from him. Baltimore scored a 9th straight time after Lamar was pulled for the entire fourth quarter and ended the game having not punted a single time. The final score was a 59-10 tail whooping of the Dolphins on the back of a 42-point first half from Lamar Jackson and the offense. After only being considered an NFL-level threat on the ground as a prospect, Lamar ran the ball a grand total of 3 times. To the contrary, he dismantled the Dolphins with his arm, throwing for 324 yards on just 17 completions and an 85% completion rate. And it's not like he was throwing to Hall of Famers either. Mark Ingram was a solid back, but the only receivers who have ever made a Pro Bowl who were on that team were second-year tight end Mark Andrews and fullback Pat Ricard. With the weapons he was given, Lamar exited Week 1 of the 2019 season as the highest-graded passer in the league by PFF and the 3rd overall offensive contributor at quarterback. The game was a masterpiece in what made Lamar Jackson such a special player at Louisville and what the Ravens saw in him. He was surgical with his arm, placing passes where the only things touching them would be his receivers or the Florida grass. His passing also threw his guys open, with Ravens receivers getting a total of 161 yards after the catch. Lamar didn't run much, but he manipulated the pocket like a veteran, piloting an offense so dominant that they hardly needed to come out of the locker room in the second half. It's worth mentioning that the 2019 Ravens defense was no joke, pinning the Dolphins down for the entire game, but it's 100% easier to do that when your offense is dominating and your opponent is getting desperate. History was made on several fronts in Week 1 of 2019. Lamar became the youngest quarterback in history to complete a game with a perfect passer rating, tying the franchise record with 5 touchdown passes in a game. He also demolished the Ravens' record for points scored in a first half, while their 32-point halftime lead set the new NFL record for a season opener. The 59 points they finished with were the most ever scored in a regular season Ravens game, and their 643 total yards were also the new top franchise mark. Now, Mark Ingram was good. I don't think he deserves the credit for these numbers, do you? In his first season as the starting quarterback, Lamar Jackson put an entire NFL franchise on a poster, doing things only he could do. And while the superstar is famously humble in press conferences, he did have something to say to his critics after this game.
Not bad for a running back.
After a season of changes and many doubts about his ability as a passer, this game made a lot of sports pundits eat crow. Raven? He showed his ability to pilot a football team from under center while doing so without a superstar receiver. These would be the prevailing themes of Lamar's first MVP season, as the Ravens went on to lose only 2 games, one to the rival Browns and the other to the future Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Their 14-2 record was the best in the AFC and only shined a light more brightly on the second-year superstar that was Lamar Jackson. He finished the season with 36 passing touchdowns to only 6 interceptions, all while throwing for just over 3,100 yards and rushing for 1,206 more and 7 touchdowns on the ground. This was the most rushing yards by any quarterback in a single season in history. Jackson did things in 2019 that most NFL teams didn't think were possible, as he dominated the league as a dual-threat quarterback, the best since Cam Newton. Lamar brought home his first MVP award as the only player to ever win it unanimously other than Tom Brady. His Week 1 performance against the Dolphins was an example of what he did to every team in football that year. Whether they were bottom feeders or top contenders, he dismantled defenses and kept offenses off the field, leading his team to the best point differential in the league by 50 points. Although it makes perfect sense, it baffles the mind to see that since that first game and his first MVP season, Lamar has only gotten better. He was limited by the decline of Greg Roman's offense, but he was still a special player for years. In 2023, however, his shackles were loosened as the Ravens made the change to Todd Monken from the Georgia dynasty, chosen to help Lamar utilize his arm talent more than ever. They won 13 games and were the 1 seed again in 2023, but fell in the AFC Championship game to Kansas City. Lamar was heavily criticized for his good but not great performance in the game, with doubts raining down on him. Just just as they did when he first took the starting job. As he always has, however, Lamar heard the critics and has come back with a vengeance. In 2024, he's pushed Kansas City to the brink in their season opener and won meaningful games against a series of quarterbacks who have been compared to Lamar throughout their careers, toppling Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, and a rising young star in Jaden Daniels is no easy feat, but Lamar has run the gauntlet and is on pace to rule the league again. In 2024, number 8 was looking better than ever as a passer, and he was on pace to surpass a former NFL trailblazer in the rushing department as a QB. Michael Vick was the first quarterback to ever run over 1,000 yards in a season, but guess what? Lamar is the only quarterback to do it in multiple seasons. Many fans relish the iconic memories of Michael Vick torching opposing teams through the air and on the ground. Lamar has carried on the baton and has influenced the league to seek out mobile quarterbacks more than ever. Derrick Henry has been an amazing addition to the Baltimore offense. The big back has not only helped Lamar, but the same can be said in reverse. King Henry has been helped by number 8, and together, the duo made the Ravens a dangerous team to compete for the Super Bowl. After Lamar took the entire NFL's lunch money in 2019, the way quarterbacks were used starting to change. Josh Allen was encouraged to rush more. Guys like Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray were given longer, better looks at the position, and the scouting process has reset, with rushing ability being seen as a necessary trait in drafting a quarterback high, giving opportunities to guys like Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels. All this because every team wishes they could have the next Lamar Jackson. But what do you think? Would you rather have a pocket passer like Kirk Cousins, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, or Tom Brady, or a mobile one like Lamar Jackson? Tell me in the comments below.